today. Today we're going to be discussing lead generation. See the people. That's our subtitle for today's webinar, and that is something we're going to be saying a lot. See the people, see the people, see the people. Somebody once told me that that was the three best pieces of advice they could give me as an insurance agent. And it turns out they were right. And we're going to go through today's webinar, talk a lot about a lot of different topics and different things you can do to generate leads. But throughout all of that, I want you guys to keep in the back of your mind, see the people. The more you see, the more you do, the more you'll get. Okay? So first things first, what's a lead? We're talking about lead generation. We can figure out what generation is, but let's all get on the same page about what a lead is, because in the insurance industry, unfortunately, not everybody agrees on the definition of lead. You can go to certain websites and find, for instance, lists of data that are presented as lists of quote-unquote cold leads. And these are just names and phone numbers that may or may not match up with one another of people who have never expressed any sort of interest in an insurance product, much less expressed interest in talking to somebody over the phone about insurance. So you'll see those sorts of things advertised as cold leads, and you'll see other things too that kind of muddy the definition of exactly what a lead is. So just to make sure that we're all starting off from the same point, when we say lead, what we are trying to generate is a qualified, interested, reachable person. A lead is someone who is qualified, interested, and reachable. They've got to be qualified to purchase insurance, both from a health perspective, being able to pass underwriting, and a financial perspective, being able to afford it, and they need to be able to need it as well. You know, someone who already has $1 million more life insurance than they need is not really going to be your ideal life insurance client. They might not be qualified to make another life insurance purchase. They got to be interested. We all have run into folks who need insurance, who have failed to plan for the future, who have no life insurance in place, who have no long-term care plans in place. These folks might need insurance and they may be qualified, but unless they're interested in purchasing insurance, they're not a lead yet. Someone who is interested, and they haven't made a purchasing decision, but they're willing to talk. Their ears kind of perk up and they think, well, you know, that is kind of something I need. So when you say life insurance or Medicare supplement or long-term care, you're not immediately being shut down. It's not someone picking up the phone, you saying life insurance, click, and they immediately hang up. So we've got someone who's qualified, who's interested, and reachable. For someone to be a lead, we need to be able to get in touch with them. We either need to know where they are so we can meet them, or we need to be able to call or email them. So this is why we don't call those lists of data cold leads, because we have no idea if they're qualified or interested, and half of them aren't reachable. Those are lists of data, and what you do with lists of data ultimately is hopefully convert them into leads. But let's get to that in a minute. One other thing that we want to kind of keep in the back of our mind, along with the see the people thing, and they go hand in hand, is that everything in prospecting is numbers. Everything's numbers. The more you prospect, the more leads you'll have. And that sounds like an obvious thing that doesn't need to be said, but I've been doing this for a good long while now, and it turns out it does need to be said. A lot of agents will sit at their desk and stare at their screensaver and stare at their phone and think, why aren't I getting leads? Why aren't people visiting my website? Why aren't people calling me to buy insurance? And they'll do that for 8 hours a day, and they'll go to bed and wake up the next morning hungry and wonder why in the hell they're failing at their career. Well, that's because there's no activity there. Activity breeds results. A lot of us do that. And it may not be to that extreme. Maybe you're deciding to do a direct mail campaign, so you spend 2 hours one day putting in an order for a new direct mail campaign and making sure your demographics are tweaked properly and getting everything set up and sending out 1,000 pieces of mail. Sorry about the dogs in the background. And then you sit around for 10 days waiting for response cards to come back in. Well, that's great. But what else are you doing? You spent 2 hours one day setting that up, and in a little bit, a couple of days, a week or so from now, you're going to start getting some leads, and you can work them then, but you've got a lot of downtime there too. So you're prospecting, but are you really filling your day with the activities that are profitable for you? Activity breeds results, and consistent activity breeds better results. It's much better than that speed bump marketing. And this is something I want to spend a little bit of time talking about before we go any farther. One of the big things that we see causing insurance agents who join the association to ultimately wash out, decide to move out of the insurance arena, decide to pursue a career elsewhere, is inconsistent marketing. For instance, if you've got a marketing budget of, say, $1,000 or $500 or 25 cents, whatever it is, and you decide, I'm going to take this marketing budget and turn it into leads, a lot of us will go out and spend all of that money at once. We'll take our entire $500 or $1,000 budget and we'll do, say, a mail campaign. And we'll spend, our $500 or $1,000 sending out 1,000 or 2 pieces of mail. And then we'll sit back and take a, excuse me, I sighed too deeply. We'll sit back and take a deep breath and think, all right, we set it up. And now we're going to wait. And now we're going to get some leads and we're going to work them hard. And then, like we said, 10 days later, those leads start showing up. And you work those leads, and you've got a lot to do when those leads cards start coming in. You call folks and you make appointments. And maybe you make a few sales. Hopefully you make a few sales. And you write those applications, and then you wait for your commissions to come in. And then your commissions come in. And then, well, you got some bills that have racked up in the past 2 weeks that you've been doing all of this stuff, so you pay those off. And you need to get some more leads, so you drop another $500 to $1,000 on another mail campaign. And now you got no money. And you're just sitting there waiting again for another 10 days for leads to come in from this mail campaign. And when they get there, they're going to be fine. You're going to work them. You're going to make money. But it's so inconsistent. You've got this couple of days of work spread out with this waiting. You've got no consistency with your marketing. More importantly, you've got no consistency with your income. You're always playing catch up. You're always trying to scrape together a few leads so you can make enough money to get the next batch of leads and pay some bills. I know it's hard, but break your marketing budget up. Make sure that you or whatever you're doing to generate leads, whatever prospecting methods that we talk about today that you decide to put into practice, or whatever you do beyond that's outside of the scope of today's webinar, do it consistently. Don't do what we're describing here, sitting down and just waiting around for 10 days or so for leads to come in from a mail campaign. We call that speed bump marketing, because you speed up between the bumps, and then you got to slow way down and kind of get over the hump, and then you speed up and you got all this work to do when the leads come in, but then you got to slow way down again. It's very inconsistent. It makes it very difficult for you as an agent to have a consistent marketing plan, consistent marketing budget, and it puts you in a position where if you get a couple of pieces of business that fall off the books and you end up with a little bit of a chargeback, especially if you're doing direct mail or final expense or something like that, you can end up behind the 8 ball very quickly. So make sure whatever you're doing it consistently. There's always something you can be doing to generate more leads. Once we go through today's webinar and we get to the very end and we talk about all the different things we're going to talk about today, there's still going to be about 5 million more things that you can do that we don't go over. There's always something. So activity, activity, activity. And at the risk of repeating myself, see the people. All right, so let's talk about some stuff we can actually do instead of why to do it or how to do it. Number one, dialing for dollars. It's everybody's least favorite. Cold calling is not particularly a fun thing to do. If you've ever done it, excuse me, you know this. And if you've ever done it for any length of time, you know that you have to develop a relatively thick skin very quickly to deal with the rejection and the hang-ups and the blah, blah, blah. Me, personally, if I'm cold calling, I can hand dial probably about 100 to 150 numbers a day before I am just so consumed with hate that I can't go on. It's not a fun process to begin with, and having to manually dial every number every time makes it that much worse. So if you're going to be doing prospecting over the phone, whether it's cold prospecting, warm prospecting to aged leads or whatever, an auto dialer really is a must. Even if you're doing something like we said, warm prospecting to aged leads. Excuse me 1 second, I'm sorry. Getting over a cold and my throat's a little scratchy. Even if you're doing some more marketing to aged leads and you're really cranking it out and you're way better than I am and you're manually dialing 300 numbers a day, you're hitting double my volume. Let's say the that you're doing really, really, really incredibly well, and you're generating one case for every 100 aged leads you work. That's a 1% closing ratio, and that's not bad with aged leads. These days, we're looking at about 0.5% to 1.5% as a general guideline for what you should feel good about closing aged leads. So if you're getting 1%, 1 out of 100 are buying on aged leads, you're doing pretty well. So let's say you're manually dialing, you're hitting 300 numbers a day, and you're getting 3 interested people every single day. That's fantastic. Who wouldn't want 3 applications a day, 3 interested, qualified, reachable people a day? But imagine if you were using an auto dialer. For me, if I go from using manual dialing at about 150 dials a day to an auto dialer, I can hit easily 1,000, 1,500 a day. And what it does is it just blows through all of those pointless dials, the ones that are busy signals, or that go to answering machines, or that just ring and ring and ring, and no one ever picks up. Those are the things that really eat up your time when dialing. If you're on an auto dialer, those dials are happening for you. Now, 2 things. Number one, even if you're on a single line dialer, and that just means the only thing that's being automated is the actual process of dialing the phone for you, you're saving a tremendous amount of time. You're going to triple the number of calls you make in a day easily, and you're going to feel better about it. Because the act of pulling the phone away from your ear, punching in the numbers, putting it up every time, and you gotta look at your screen and get the number, and you back and forth and all that. It takes forever. It doesn't seem like it takes forever, but when you're doing it 100, 200 times a day, it adds a lot of time, a lot of dead time. An auto dialer does that for you. Stripping that out, number one, takes a huge burden off of your plate. Number two, if you're using a multi-line dialer, it's that much better. A single-line dialer is just going to dial 1 number at a time, and whatever happens, happens. A multi-line dialer will dial 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers at a time, and whoever connects first wins, essentially. The other calls get dropped. There's handling processes in place to make sure that a reasonable number of the calls are dropped and the ratio is not too bad, or otherwise the SEC will come shut down your dialer or whatever. But point being, a multi-line dialer will really help you dial through or blow through those disconnected numbers, those busy signals, answering machines, that sort of thing. Those things really slow you down when you're manually dialing. And all of this stuff we're talking about, using an auto dialer for aged leads, cold calling, you can do this with a telemarketer too. You don't have to do this personally. You can hire somebody to telemarket for you and set them up with a dialer and help them learn how to do this stuff. And if you're interested in doing that, we've got a dedicated webinar on the site about hiring a telemarketer. Rick has done it. A couple of our agents have done it. It works. Your results vary based on the products you're selling and the approach you're taking. For instance, aged leads, something like that's going to work better with a life insurance product. Cold calling for life insurance is painful. I wouldn't do it. But cold calling for something like Medicare supplements tends to work a little bit better, because you can call folks and if you find out who they've got their supplement with, even if you don't make a sale, you can chalk that up in the win column. Because 4 months from now, 6 months from now, whatever, whoever they've got their supplement with, they're going to raise their rates. Everybody does. Every carrier raises their rates periodically, and they don't all do it at the same time. So if you are a savvy Medicare agent and you've called a bunch of people, and you know that Blue Cross Blue Shield in your area has just raised their Medicare supplement rates on plan whatever by 20%, well, you've got this database of folks that you happen to know have that carrier, have that plan. That's an easy call. Call them up, say, hey, your bill just went up, didn't it? You want to get the same benefits for cheaper? And it's a long-term game. It's not going to make you money tomorrow, like we said, but it takes time to wait for those rate increases, and it takes a little bit more management. But it's something you can do, and it's one of the activities that you can do to generate a consistently full pipeline. Direct mail, too. We touched on this a little bit when we were talking about speed bump marketing. Direct mail works differently depending on what types of products you're trying to market and who you're trying to market them to. Typically, and this varies a lot, again, depending on exactly where you want to mail, who you want to mail to, what types of mailer you want to do. But typically, for the type of stuff that we recommend doing, you're going to look at about $400 to $500 per 1,000 pieces of mail you send out. You can find cheaper elsewhere. You can find it down to $335 per 1,000 if you want. Some of these mail outfits, though, are not ones that I would trust my money with. And you run into a lot of issues with direct mail outfits that we found out over the years, and that we'll spend a little time talking about now to kind of help you avoid them. One of the primary things you got to look out for with direct mail marketing is working with a mail house that's actually going to send your mail out properly. And as stupid as that sounds, it's an issue that you really need to be aware of as an agent. Going back to the beginning of the webinar, when we talked about speed bump marketing, why does it take 10 days after a mail campaign for us to start generating leads? Well, think about how a direct mail campaign works. You're sending out these direct response postcards. Your client, takes a day or two to get out and get in everybody's mailboxes. Clients get them. Maybe they send them back the same day or the next day. Takes a day or two for them to make their way back. Your vendor gets them or you get them. And by the time all that stuff has been done, like I say, you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 days into the process. It just takes time. It's not an immediate turnaround. And that's a best case scenario. An issue we've run into in the past when using discount direct mail providers has been that lag time dragging out upwards of 30-plus days. Now, think back to our conversation about speed bump marketing and about how that inconsistency in closing and lead flow can lead to some serious problems in your business. You can imagine paying upfront for a direct mail campaign and not seeing leads off of it for 30 days would be a serious interruption to anyone's marketing budget, expected lead flow, etc. But what you find out with these deep discount mail houses is that they don't want to send out 1,000-piece mailers. They've got bulk permits. They want to send out 100,000-piece mailers. So your order might sit on a dock until they've got enough other orders in that same zip code to blast them all out at once. Which means two things. One, you've got to sit around and wait for your postcards to be printed and mailed out longer than you should. And two, by the time they go out, they're diluted because they're going out with a bunch of other stuff that's might as well be identical anyway. So the result there is not worth what you would save going with one of these discount places. And like we say, you can find these things for $300, $350 or so per 1,000. That's the type of experience you're going to end up having. Longer print times, shipments sitting on the dock. And worse, when leads come back in, you can't really be 100% certain that you're getting them properly. This is one horror story that unfortunately we ran into as the association with one of our previous direct mail vendors, and it's something we tell everybody about now because it's a cautionary tale that we think is very useful to you. We had a direct mail vendor that at one point provided leads at $335 a thousand. And we found out that they were skimming leads. They were getting the leads they got back in instead of just directly handing them over to the agents that had ordered the mail drops. Some of the leads were being pulled out and resold as individual direct mail and exclusive leads, not to the agent that had paid to generate them. So that's shady. That's terrible. You as an agent are essentially paying to generate leads for somebody else, and the mail vendor who has screwed you is charging that other guy for that lead. So they're double dipping. You're not getting what you want. Long story short, we know there are cheaper options out there, but this is the price range you're going to be looking at for a reputable direct mail vendor. If you find something below this, maybe you found the deal of the century. Maybe you found somebody who's going to screw you. Either way, you should be doing your due diligence. So like we said, direct mail tends to work differently depending on what products you're doing. Final expense, for example, is one of the tried and true direct mail buddies or companions, however you want to put it. A lot of folks advertise, market for final expense through direct mail and do it very consistently and very well. You can generally rely on a certain return on investment with your direct mail marketing. You can get a good feel for what certain demographics are going to do in certain areas. Like we say here in the slide, the products you choose have a major impact on demographics. So if you're selling final expense, you're going to be targeting a different age range and income bracket than you might target for, say, Medicare supplements. And again, with that, you're going to be targeting a totally different income bracket than you would for Medicare Advantage. So depending on the time of year, that Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplement break, the products that you're selecting, final expense, other forms of life insurance or long-term care or annuities or Medicare products, you'll find that you'll take different approaches, select different demographics to market your direct mail campaigns to. If you're with a solid direct mail house, someone like Lead Connections out of Delaware, New Jersey, I've forgotten now that I've said it. Yeah, leadconnections.com is their site. Lead Connections with an S at the end. We don't have a discount available with them. We used to, but the last postage hike put our discount price at the same level as their base price. So unfortunately, we can't offer that any longer. But they're a very good mail house. And if you're with a good mail house like that, you can work with them to mail to specific zip codes with specific demographics and really target the audience that you want to reach. So that, for instance, if you're selling final expense, you're not mailing to 35-year-old millionaires. No, they're probably not going to be all that interested in Forrester's latest option. All right, moving on from direct mail, we'll get into professional networking. Now, this is one of those that your mileage really may vary, and it's something that you'll get out of what you put in. When you first start with professional networking, you're putting on your nice suit and tie, or your blouse or whatever, and you're going to your Chamber of Commerce or your Key Club meeting or this, that, and the other. It can start to feel like just such a tremendous faff, such a waste of time. But it's one of those things that really over time can start to pay off and is worth the investment if you can get through that initial slog. When we say you get out of it what you put into it, a lot of times what you find in these things like professional networking groups, especially chambers of commerce, civic organizations, are folks that are networking with the same kind of goal that you have. They're looking for sales. They're looking for clients. So you're going to these professional networking things, excuse the analogy, as a shark hoping to eat some fish. And you get there and it's just a tank full of sharks and everybody's hungry because there's no fish to eat. So you have to go into it with the attitude that if you show up as the shark with the bucket of fish, you're going to be the most popular shark at the ball. So when we say you're going to get out of it what you put into it, these things work based on how many leads you feed into them. And it works better if you know folks, if you've got a little bit of a book of business anyway. If you're going to really get into professional networking, the more of it you do, the better, because you're going to meet more people. You're going to have a wider network, and you're going to be able to make connections and refer people and generate leads for other people faster and more effectively. One story I'll tell real quick is when I was at the Chamber of Commerce doing face-to-face marketing in Atlanta with some of the business owners that went there. There was a print shop. They did like silk screening for shirts, and they did embroidery for like polo shirts. So if you had like a restaurant or something, uniform stuff, like small business uniforms. If you had a family restaurant and you wanted everybody to have the same shirt, they'd make them for you. It was three brothers that ran that print shop business. And I knew that they had a little bit of friction between the three of them. And I really wanted to write a key person life insurance policy on each one of them, so that if anybody decided to divorce themselves from the business or if something happened, blah, 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 there was kind of a fail-safe in place. Only one of the brothers was at the Chamber of Commerce, and he wasn't really interested in life insurance. So I met him, I talked to him, I learned about the situation, and it didn't make any headway for a long time until I met this guy at one of my other professional networking groups who had just opened up a pizza restaurant. And he was doing well, had good business, but he was complaining because he felt like everybody in his place looked super unprofessional. So I introduced the pizza restaurant guy to the small business uniform guy. They met one another. They hit it off, formed a business relationship. These three brothers make uniforms for the guy's pizza restaurant. Pizza restaurant's happy. Brothers are happy. And what do you know it? It's like a week later and my phone rings and the brothers want to talk to me about doing a life insurance policy for their business. And that's the kind of thing that professional networking does. You go in, and if you just go in with the attitude that I'm going to go here and I'm going to find people that need life insurance and I'm going to write it for them, you're not going to get very far. I went in, I found people that needed life insurance, and they didn't really give a damn. They didn't want to talk to me. It wasn't until I demonstrated that I had something to offer them, or that I actually cared about their business or understood what they were doing, that they were interested in that conversation. And once they were, it went from there. And once you kind of crack that first barrier, it gets a lot easier after that. The conversations that I had with other folks at the chamber and other professional groups were a lot easier, and that whole thing became a lot more profitable after that kind of first hurdle was overcome. But that's the idea that you have to go into this thing too. If you're going into professional networking, is that you're not going in there to get fat right away. You're not going to go in and just rake in all these things. You're going to go in really sorry about the dogs in the background. You're going to go in and have to give to get. So these are some examples of professional organizations that you can join. Civic organizations, your group like here, Kiwanis Club, networking groups. You'll find like Power Core and Mastermind groups all over the place. You can find them on meetup.com. There are two separate models usually for these. Are closed and open networking groups. Closed groups are ones that only allow one person per profession. So if they already have a life insurance agent, tough, you're not coming in as a life insurance agent. If it's an open networking group, it's open. Join if you want. Toastmasters groups are a little bit, let me back up. Toastmasters groups are fantastic. I've just stumbled over my words quite a lot and said and so this is probably an inopportune time for me to say that Toastmasters is a place that I feel really improved my public speaking. They, as an organization, are set up to help individual member organizations improve their members' speaking abilities and get them comfortable talking in front of a group and talking one-on-one. And that's something that we as insurance agents can really benefit from. Clarifying and improving your communication skills is always going to be a positive. You shouldn't turn that down at any point. I mean, if you can communicate more clearly, your clients are going to understand you better, and you're going to be in a better spot. If you're able to speak in front of a crowd comfortably, then that too is fantastic. And you're able to present your ideas more effectively to groups like seminar marketing opportunities or things like that. And not only that, but the speeches you give at Toastmasters clubs, they're to captive audiences. If you want to give your speeches about insurance, go for it. I've picked up clients at Toastmasters clubs before because they like the things I talked about. Chambers of Commerce, we touched on that. Religious groups, your mileage may vary with this. Maybe that's appropriate for where you are and who you are in your market or not. Only you would know. Point being, you're looking for places where other folks are, and it goes back, like we said, to seeing the people. And once you see the people, once you have these leads, once you're talking to folks and actually working with them, whether you're able to close a deal and make a sale or not, referral gathering is a hugely important part of any successful agent's lead generation strategy. It's the ability to turn one lead into three. It's a multiplicative effect on your prospecting. Imagine if overnight your prospecting were twice as effective or 3 times as effective. That's what we're talking about with referral gathering. And we call it referral gathering, not referral accepting, for a reason, because you have to ask for them. And this is one thing that a lot of agents are very bad at, is asking for referrals, because it feels presumptuous. And we kind of get this idea in our head that, well, if we do a good job, people will want to give us referrals. If I'm friendly and courteous and knowledgeable and helpful, my clients should naturally want to refer their friends to me for their insurance needs. That's great, but your clients don't think about insurance like you do. As soon as your client is done signing whatever they bought from you, they're done. They don't want to think about insurance anymore. My God, they've just spent more time thinking about insurance in the past day or so than they have in the 10 years prior. They are done with this crap. They do not want to think about insurance anymore. And they certainly don't want to think about which one of their friends might want to buy insurance. Good God, they're just done. They're not going to volunteer this stuff. Their mind, once they sign on the dotted line, is switched off. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean the process is done. They have bought their insurance. To them, to the client, to the end user, that's what we were here for, and we just finished. You as an insurance agent, you live insurance, you breathe insurance, you are insurance. Your clients are just wanting to get this done so they can get back to the other stuff that they feel like they need to do. So you guys are coming at this with way different mindsets. They're not just going to give you referrals unless you ask for them, because you have to keep them in that mindset. ask for those referrals. And don't just ask, do you know anybody who wants some insurance? No, if you just talk to somebody about their Medicare supplement plan, who else do you know that might be overpaying for their Medicare supplement? If you just talk to somebody about final expense, who do you know from church that hasn't got a plan for their funeral expenses yet? If you just talk to somebody about long-term care insurance, you mentioned you had a sister. Do you know if she has this sort of thing planned for? These specific questions, not who do you know, or I'm sorry, not do you know someone, but who do you know, are important. If you ask someone, do you know anybody who needs XYZ, what are you going to get? You're either going to get a yes or a no. If you get a no, you're shut down. If you get a yes, the next question is, great, who are they? What the heck's the point of that? Just skip over it and just get to the point. Who do you know? Don't even give them the option to give you that I don't know anybody's stuff. BS. Everybody knows somebody. I'm an insurance agent. The only people I talk to are my clients. And when I have my druthers, I don't leave the house if I don't have to. I'm basically a hermit. I still know 2 or 3 people off the top of my head at any given situation that might need some kind of product or service. My buddy David, I know that his transmission went out recently. If somebody asks me for a mechanic, I can give him a referral there. And if my mechanic is the one to ask me, hey, who do you know that needs some work on their car? Well, David's the guy that's going to pop to mind. Ask for these referrals and ask for an introduction if you can. Think about the difference between you as an agent getting a referral and calling them up and saying, hey, your friend Bob, I was just talking to him about insurance and they said, they said I should call you, versus you asking Bob to call that person and say, hey, listen, I just sat down with Nick. He helped me with my insurance. I'm going to have him call you later. Don't hang up on him because he did a really great job and I want you to hear what he has to say. Completely different lead in, completely different thing, completely different atmosphere. And when you as an agent go in to have that next conversation with Bob or whoever, you're going to find them as a more receptive person. Asking for referrals and asking for an introduction, if you get them, are huge, huge things that you can do to multiplicatively improve the power of whatever prospecting you're doing on your own. Real briefly, let's touch on real-time internet leads. You can go to places like allwebleads.com. You can buy real-time internet leads from people that have gone online, requested a quote. They're expensive and oversold. Don't buy them. Personal internet leads. This is a longer-term strategy, but it's one that you should be investing in. Excuse me. If you've got your own website, or if you've got your own personal or professional Facebook page or LinkedIn page, these are things that you can monetize over time. These are places that you can drive clients to and drive traffic to over time to improve your overall lead flow. If you've just got a web page online that's got your name on it and a little form for people to contact you, and you register the domain so that you can have Nick at georgiainsurance.com or whatever it is you registered. That's nice that you've got your email and that's nice that you've got your web page. But if you work on that site over time, you slowly add content to it. You slowly link to it from your personal media account or your social media accounts like LinkedIn and Facebook. You'll find over time that people interact with those social media accounts. You'll find over time that people find your website in search engines and in just general browsing. It's not something that if you do it today will generate leads for you tomorrow. But it is something that if you spend 20, 30 minutes on a day, 3, 4, 5 days a week, a year from now, you're going to get a tremendous amount of traffic. Because people don't do this. People don't feed that work into it. I've got a couple of lead generation sites right now that get 1,200 hits a day because of the work I did on them 2-3 years ago. And now they're just coasting at this point. And that's the point that you can get to as well. You're not going to put a website up today and have leads tomorrow. You're not going to put a website up, make a Facebook post, and all of your prospecting is done forevermore because the internet is magic. It's not. But you can use your own social media sites or social media profiles and your own websites to generate your own leads that are truly exclusive to you. Going back to those purchased real-time internet leads, if they say quote unquote exclusive, number one, that's probably a lie. It's probably just not exclusive. They sold it to a bunch of people because real-time internet lead vendors are crooks and they're selling it and they don't mind lying to you. But the other thing is, even if they are telling you the truth, and these, John Doe goes to this website and puts his information in and becomes a lead, and the lead vendor sells it to you as an exclusive lead. John Doe probably went to 4 other websites already by the time you called him, and those 4 websites weren't exclusive. They sold them to 8 agents each. So you got your one exclusive lead, and you feel good about yourself. Get in line behind the 33 other people that paid $5 a pop for it. Personal internet leads, maybe you run into the same thing. Maybe when somebody clicked your form and submitted their information, that was the 4th website they had visited, but you didn't pay $50 for the exclusive lead. You still get to call them, you still get to contact them, you still get to convert them, and over time you will find that you get a decent lead flow from this stuff. You get, and it grows on itself. So I know that we've got a couple of webinars on the side about building your online presence and marketing online. You can also do some paid advertising for your websites through things like Google and Facebook advertising. And that's a little bit outside of the scope of the webinar today. But we do have that webinar in the Prospecting 101 section about establishing an online presence and marketing like that, if this is something you want to go into a little more detail with. It's a guest webinar with Jeff Root. It's a really good one if you haven't seen it. All right, so we're getting towards the end of things here. We're just going to wrap up with a little bit of general advice on lead generation. And the big thing is just knowing your target market. Where will they be, and where will the people who serve them be? If you want to sell final expense, where will they be? Not to sound derogatory or anything, but probably at home. They're going to be a little bit on the older side, not necessarily elderly, but probably 50 plus. They're going to be in a lower income bracket because they're final expense clients, and they're going to probably be in areas that have a little bit less access to healthcare. So that's where they'll be. How can we reach those folks? Direct mail. We can reach them with telemarketing, because again, they're at home, they're reachable. And where will the people who service them be? Who are folks that work with this community? Maybe you're selling a completely different product. Maybe you just want to sell some nice non-med term products. Who's your market? Young, healthy folks. Where will they be? All over the place. Young, healthy folks are everywhere. They're young and healthy. You can do whatever they want. So who's going to service young and healthy folks? Maybe those are the people you target to try to target that market. Maybe you want to sell mortgage protection insurance. And that's something that you can partner with other property and casualty agents on. Somebody's buying a brand new homeowners insurance policy. Good chance that they might need a mortgage protection policy as well. Maybe you partner with divorce attorneys. A lot of divorces these days come with a clause that one party has to purchase insurance for a dependent or for the divorced spouse. Those are policies that you can write. Where will your clients be? And where will the people who work with your clients be? That's your target. That's where you want to be as well. Whether that's a civic organization, whether that's a professional networking group, or an avenue that you can market to, like over the phone or direct mail. Think about where your target market will be and how you can reach them and how you can reach the people that work with them. That's where you're going to find the most success. And of course, you got to see the people. See the people, see the people. 3 best pieces of advice I can give you. So that's going to wrap us up for Lead Generation 101, presented by the Independent Life Insurance Agent Association and MedicareTraining101.com. Now we want to open things up for questions. So if you guys have any questions, use the question and answer feature on the Zoom control panel to fire away. And I'm going to stop our screen share real quick while we do that.